What's your name? Where's your mum or dad?
Fending off tiny gate crashes
Thanks very much for that contribution.
and the usual feeding frenzy.
You flicked off and then... I'll come back. No, I'm in charge. You.
Anthony Albanese today fighting for clear air in the aftermath of yesterday's NDIS stumble.
Let me tell you what the NDIS is about. It's not about gotcha questions. What it's about is providing what... Hang on, you had your opportunity and now it's my turn to answer.
The PM was busy fending off attacks of his own.
I've always treated former Prime Ministers with the utmost of dignity and respect, but I don't share his view.
Malcolm Turnbull seemingly encouraging voters to rebel against his own party and vote independent in a leaked speech, saying even if the members of a political party cannot escape from the thrall of the dominant faction, their traditional supporters in the electorate can do so by voting for an independent who has a real chance of success.
You are telling people, small L supporters of the Liberal Party, if they want to stop the capture of their party, the best thing they can do is vote Teal.
Well, that's not what the speech says. That's words. You're putting words into my mouth. So I suggest you read the speech.
I've read it very carefully.
Having read it,
I'm not going to argue with you about what's in my own speech.
Liberal pollies hitting out at Turnbull.
On this occasion, Malcolm is wrong. He's dead wrong, in fact.
And at the independents he's backing.
This will add to the confusion when in times you need certainty.
Could you imagine the chaos of that type of a parliament when Australia needs to be strong?
Chaos in Parliament? Unheard of.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker.
Well, hang on.
Is it any more chaotic than what has happened under the last 9 to 10 years under this government, changing leaders?
Someone like Barnaby Joyce, when he was in the backbenches, using threats to government as a way of gaining power.
You know, talk about chaotic. I think Scott Morrison's entire leadership has been chaotic.
Well, Coalition Senator Bridget McKenzie and Labor Senator Murray Watt join us now. Bridget, that's a fair point, isn't it? You can't expect us to forget the last 3 years or beyond that. When you and Barnaby were on the backbenches, there was a fair bit of sniping, a fair bit of chaos too. It's not really fair to say independence would be more chaotic.
Absolutely it is, Hamish. Absolutely it is.
Why?
I mean, we were able to negotiate outcomes as a political party and a force for rural and regional Australia within the coalition, and that's a good thing. I think the National Party has a role to play in the federal parliament, and I stand here. There's 8 million of us that don't live in capital cities,
come on, Senator
and
McKenzie,
the Labor Party,
why
the
is an
Labor Party,
independent, why is an independent
Hamish,
doing exactly the same thing any different?
Well, we're a political movement that is unashamedly focused on the 8 million Australians that don't live in capital cities. The independents seem to only be focused on attacking Liberal Party inner city seats and causing chaos on the way through. We live in very challenging times at the moment, and we cannot afford to have a hung parliament, I'm sorry, on any... global factors at an economic level, but also at a national security level, mean having a hung parliament will make it incredibly difficult for whoever is the Prime Minister to govern and provide the stability and confidence that Australians will need in the coming years.
Murray, what you wouldn't want to be in a minority government again, would you?
No, I wouldn't, Hamish. And, obviously I would be asking people to support a majority Labor government so that we can actually get on and deliver the things that we're promising around cheaper childcare, cheaper power bills, making things here, all of those things that we're taking to an election. But, I've got to take up what Bridget's saying. I mean, if she's saying that the last 3 years haven't been chaos under this government, I'd hate to see what is. I mean, at times the National Party room has resembled a barroom brawl at the back of some pub in Tamworth, with them all taking pot shots at each other, and it's carried into the campaign as well. Even just last week, we had 2 different National Party candidates in Queensland out there saying either that net zero was dead or it's not binding, while you've got Liberals in the cities saying something completely different. The chaos has continued into the campaign as well, and I think that's the last thing that people need for the next 3 years.
Well, Murray, your candidate in Hunter can't decide what he considers should be safeguarded under that mechanism, and I think you need to come clean. The Labor Party speaks out of both sides of its mouth also on a range of policy issues. And if you want to talk about chaos,
be running that old line again. Not when your own people are doing exactly what you accused us of in the last election campaign.
If you think it's tough in a campaign, being the Prime Minister and running trillion economy here in Australia and keeping Australians safe. With all the global challenges that we're experiencing, you're kidding yourselves. Your leader can't even articulate your own policies at this election, can't even stand up in an Australian press pack, let alone standing up to Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. I mean, are you seriously thinking this guy is up to the job? I honestly don't. He's not. Sorry, Murray.
I've been in regional New South Wales and regional Queensland the entire week, and not one person has raised any of that with me. And, you know, it's no wonder that you've seen the rise of these teal independents in urban seats when you've got a government that is all over the shop on climate change policy. That is one of the biggest drivers of the teal independent movements. Well, how is it then that you've got Matt Canavan saying net zero is dead, you've got Colin Boyce saying it's not binding, you've got Trent Zimmerman and Dave Sharma saying, oh, no, that's not the case at all. It is just a joke, and it's no wonder that this government can't get anything done on climate change, energy policy or anything else. Everything this government touches turns to you-know-what, and it's a result of the chaos that we're seeing here. So that's why we're asking for a majority Labor government, so we can actually deliver policies, deliver a coherent plan around cost of living, around climate change, around manufacturing. That's the only way we're going to get this country back on track.
Senator Watt, Anthony Albanese was again on the defence today, as you heard from Bridget McKenzie there, over yesterday's NDIS fumble. Why is he struggling so much?
Look, as I say, I think this is a beat-up. Honestly, from everywhere I've been over the course of the last week, not one person is talking about this. The things they've been talking to me about is how their kids are going to afford a house, how they can pay their bills, how they can get a job, how they can, have other things made in Australia. Like, they're the kind of things that people are talking about. And frankly, Bridget, I've been in disaster-prone regions all week talking about the fact that your government still hasn't got money out the door to them, despite the promises.
Murray,
that's what people are talking about.
I really
not
need to
gaffes
stop
and
you
stumbles.
there. I really need to stop you there. In terms of responding to the disasters we've seen, there's been no other faster response, both with financial and non-financial support for flood-affected victims in Queensland and New South Wales than we've been able to roll out
I know that's
recently.
what you say,
whether it comes to deploying aid,
can
I please not be interrupted? Whether it's deploying the ADF in record time, whether it's getting cash payments over $1.8 billion into people's accounts in that emergency phase, or working constructively with both Queensland and New South Wales state governments to roll out through this recovery phase, which we know is going to go for years. It's been the most collaborative effort thus far. But just to return to the point, and Albo has had 3 years to prep for the job of Prime Minister. He cannot even get through a press conference describing his own policies. He can't remember core economic data that isn't about being a pop quiz or gotcha moments. The unemployment rate is directly related to wage growth, something the Labor Party say they care about, yet he doesn't know the number.
Well, Bridget, if we're going to go there, I could bring out...
We see interest rates.
Murray and Bridget, can I just invite you just to stop the interjections of each other just for a moment? I do want to ask you a serious question, Murray Watt, about Anthony Albanese's performance. I had the opportunity to be out on the campaign trail with him this week. It does look, actually, in person, like he's struggling even to control those press conferences. I know the questioning's pretty ferocious at times, but he does seem to be sort of searching around for those other shadow ministers to help him out with the detail and some of the answers. Do you think he's actually just not quite up to this?
No, I don't think that at all, Hamish. I mean, I've stood next to him in a couple of those press conferences and you're dead right, they are ferocious. You've got reporters literally screaming at Albo, screaming over the top of each other. So I think it's pretty impossible for anyone to control order. And I've got to say, it's a bit different to the press conferences that I see the Prime Minister experiencing. There is a different standard that's being applied here. But I don't think that Albo is struggling. I mean, and honestly, in the last, it was really interesting, the last debate between the two leaders a couple of weeks ago, it was after these so-called stumbles. Every single question from average punters in the room was about those basic issues, about cost of living, house prices, jobs, healthcare. None of them cared about this circus that the media seems to be obsessed with. So I'm not concerned about it at all. And all of our policies are there in detail on our website, coming out of Albo's mouth and coming out of shadow ministers' mouths as well.
Murray, Bridget, we will have to leave it there. We could talk all night. Thanks for your time.
Good to talk to you all.